Hey everyone! Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a chapter of this incredible journey. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And I want to hear from you, so drop a comment below with your thoughts, your favorite moments, or what you think will happen next. Let's build this community together. Your voice matters here. Now, let's get into the story. Emily's fingers hovered over the thick ivory envelope, the kind that looked like it belonged at a royal gala, not in her modest two-bedroom house tucked into the green hills of Corvallis, Oregon. The paper was smooth, heavy, and embossed with golden calligraphy. It practically screamed, "You don't belong in this world." She sighed and slid her thumb under the seal. Inside was an elaborate wedding invitation. Brent Whitmore, her only brother, was marrying Cassandra Lane, daughter of a retired film executive, Instagram-famous lifestyle influencer, and apparently someone who found Emily quaint. That last part wasn't written, of course, but she could practically hear it whispered in the details. The location: Beverly Hills. The dress code: black tie formal. The RSVP site: a custom domain with cinematic drone footage of the venue. It had been 2 years since she'd last seen Brent. They'd drifted apart after college, after he moved to LA and started calling her job cute, and her routines charming in the way people compliment rescue animals, with more pity than admiration. He was 5 years younger, but somewhere along the line he'd become convinced he was the older sibling, the more evolved one. It was subtle at first. Small jokes, half-hearted laughs when she mentioned her book club or her students, until it wasn't. Still, she couldn't just ignore the invitation. Despite everything, he was her brother. She owed it to their parents, both gone now, to at least show up. 3 weeks later, Emily found herself on a crowded Delta flight to Los Angeles, the window seat offering little comfort as the woman next to her FaceTimed loudly with her dog. Emily tried to focus on her book, an old paperback copy of East of Eden with cracked pages and notes in the margins, but she kept rereading the same paragraph. She wasn't nervous, she told herself. Just misaligned. LA was another planet. Her life in Oregon was slow, deliberate. She walked to work, cooked her meals, planted tulips in the spring and read by candlelight in the fall. Brent's world moved at the speed of sponsored content and valet parking. She wasn't envious. Just curious how they had turned out so different. The venue was impossible to ignore. A sprawling mansion on Mulholland Drive, surrounded by tall hedges, luxury cars, and people with faces that looked like they never aged naturally. Emily stepped out of her Uber in a navy blue dress she'd bought secondhand and altered herself. It wasn't glamorous, but it fit her perfectly and made her feel whole, which in that moment was everything. No one greeted her at the door. A tall man in a headset waved her through with a clipboard and a bored nod. Inside, the air was cool and perfumed. Glass walls overlooked the Hollywood Hills. People held champagne flutes and conversations filled with names she didn't recognize. Producers, influencers, brand managers. She scanned the room for Brent but found only clusters of white teeth and perfectly tailored tuxedos. "Emily!" a voice called. She turned to see him, her brother. Taller, sharper, more golden than she remembered. Brent looked like an actor auditioning to play himself. His smile was wide but didn't reach his eyes. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, kissing the air near her cheek. "Cassandra said you might feel out of place." "I do," Emily said, trying to soften it with a half-smile. Brent laughed a little too loud. Same old Em. Still allergic to subtlety. She watched him walk away moments later, caught in a sea of handshakes and flashbulbs, and realized they weren't just on different paths. They were living different realities. The rehearsal dinner was where it all began. The unraveling. Seated near the back of the long, candlelit table, Emily listened as guests toasted the couple. Cassandra's friends were polished, confident. Brent's colleagues from the tech startup he'd sold for millions told stories of ambition and hustle. Then Brent stood, glass in hand, and cleared his throat. "I'd like to toast someone very special in the room. My sister Emily," he said. Heads turned toward her, and she smiled politely, unsure where this was going. She came all the way from Oregon. She lives this wonderfully simple life. She's a librarian. Yes, those still exist, and she reads books. Real ones. Paper and everything. The room chuckled. Brent leaned in. She doesn't own a TV. She's never been on a plane outside the US. She grows her own vegetables. I mean, how many people can say they've met a real-life time traveler from 1953? The laughter got louder. Emily's cheeks burned. Brent raised his glass. To Emily. Proof that even in today's world, you can still live in the past and be totally, completely, irrelevant. The clinking glasses were the loudest sound she'd ever heard. And then silence, as Cassandra rose slowly from her chair, holding her own glass with grace, her expression unreadable. The clinking glasses faded like an awkward echo as Cassandra slowly rose to her feet. Her white dress shimmered under the warm lights, but her face had lost all its glow. She held her champagne delicately, like it might shatter if she gripped it too tight. Everyone turned toward her, not out of respect but curiosity. Cassandra hadn't spoken yet that evening. She had let Brent take center stage, smiling politely, nodding at the right times, playing the elegant fiancé. But now the entire table watched her, waiting for her to smile and carry on the joke. He didn't. "I'd like to say something," she began, her voice steady and clear, slicing through the laughter like glass under pressure. "About Emily." The room quieted immediately. "I met Emily exactly once before this weekend. It was at a small cafe in Portland where she insisted on paying for her own coffee even though I offered 3 times. I asked her why and she said, 'Because I'm not for sale.'" Several guests shifted in their seats. Brent chuckled, still standing. "Oh, come on, Cass, it was just a..." She held up a hand, graceful but commanding. "Stop. I've spent the last 2 years surrounded by people who measure their value in clicks, cars, and follower counts," she said. "But in that quiet moment in Portland, I met someone who doesn't perform for approval. Someone who lives with purpose, not projection." Emily felt her throat tighten. Cassandra looked directly at her. "You said something else that day. You told me that just because something is small doesn't mean it lacks meaning. You said, 'A life doesn't have to be loud to be full.'" I never forgot that. No one laughed now. Even the servers paused, unsure if they should continue pouring wine. Cassandra turned back to the crowd. "I think it's easy to mock what we don't understand. But the truth is, I envy Emily. Because she knows who she is, and she doesn't have to shout it to be seen." She raised her glass. "To Emily. May we all one day live a life as authentic as hers." There was no loud clinking this time. Just a slow, scattered wave of raised glasses. A murmur of agreement. A few glances toward Brent, some awkward, others pointed. Cassandra sat down, calmly sipping her champagne like nothing had happened. Brent looked frozen, unsure if he should smile, apologize, or disappear. Emily stayed quiet. Her heart pounded in her chest, not with triumph, but with disbelief. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't vindication. It was clarity. Someone had seen her, really seen her, in a room full of people who hadn't bothered to try. Later that evening, Emily slipped out onto the balcony. The air was cooler than she expected, and the city lights blinked in the distance like static on a screen. She leaned on the railing, trying to find her breath. Cassandra joined her a moment later, heels in hand. "I hope I didn't embarrass you," she said. "You didn't," Emily replied, her voice soft. "You surprised me." Cassandra smiled. "Good. I wanted to. Brent's a good man, but sometimes he forgets that kindness matters more than confidence." Emily nodded. "He used to be different. I think we all did." They stood in silence for a while. Then Cassandra turned to her. "Will you still come to the wedding tomorrow?" Emily thought about it. Thought about the people, the jokes, the whispered comments she'd probably still hear. Then she thought about Cassandra, about her eyes in that moment, and how rare it was to find someone who defended you without needing a reason. "I'll be there," Emily said. "But I might leave right after the cake." Cassandra laughed. "Fair. That night, in her small hotel room far from the hills and noise, Emily lay awake. Not out of anger, but something quieter, like a tide retreating. She realized she had never expected anyone in Brent's world to speak up for her. She'd come prepared to endure, not to be acknowledged. And now, something had shifted. The next morning, the wedding buzz took over the entire estate. Florists, planners, photographers. Emily kept to herself, avoiding small talk, brushing off backhanded compliments like, "That dress looks so charming, it's vintage, right?" But when Cassandra passed her just before the ceremony, she gave her a small, reassuring nod. Emily returned it. The ceremony was extravagant. A string quartet, a panoramic view of the city, vows that felt rehearsed but touching all the same. Brent looked the part. Cassandra looked beautiful. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. At the reception, seated again near the back, Emily overheard things she wasn't meant to. "Cassandra's friends are saying she might be rethinking it," one woman whispered. "I heard they argued last night. I mean, did you hear her toast? It was basically a takedown." Emily tried to tune it out. But part of her knew, things were happening behind the scenes. Unsaid things. Unraveling things. And before the night was over, one of those things would reach her directly. The night wore on, and the glittering reception hall transformed from a scene of celebration into a subtle battlefield of quiet tensions and stolen glances. Emily sat quietly at her table, the hum of polite conversation flowing around her like a distant river she wasn't part of. She picked at the delicate edges of her salad, feeling like an observer rather than a guest. Her brother Brent was everywhere, smiling, shaking hands, accepting congratulations with practiced ease. But to Emily's eyes, the facade was cracking. She caught brief moments when his smile flickered into a tight line, when his eyes darted nervously toward Cassandra's direction. Then she saw it. Cassandra across the room, in conversation with a woman who looked like a publicist. Their faces were serious, brows furrowed, voices low. Emily strained to listen but caught only fragments. "Not what we expected. Need to control the narrative. This could get ugly." Emily felt a knot twist in her stomach. This was no ordinary wedding drama. It was something deeper. Later, during the speeches, Brent took the microphone again. The room fell silent, anticipation mixing with an undercurrent of unease. This time, his words were different. Not the cruel jabs or condescension of the rehearsal dinner, but something rawer. "I've always felt like I had to prove myself," he began, voice cracking slightly. "To my family, to Cassandra, to everyone here." He swallowed hard. "And maybe I went too far tonight. I wanted to be the successful brother, the one with the flashy life. But in doing that, I forgot what really matters." The crowd softened. Some guests nodded, others whispered encouragement. Emily's heart pounded. Was this a moment of genuine apology? Or just another performance? Before anyone could respond, Cassandra stood up, her expression unreadable. "Brent," she said firmly, "it's not about proving anything. It's about being honest, with yourself and with each other." Her gaze shifted to Emily. "And sometimes, honesty means accepting the quiet strength in someone else's life, even if it looks different from your own." Brent's eyes flickered with something unspoken, regret? Shame? Maybe both. After the speeches, Emily found herself alone near the garden's edge. The air smelled of jasmine and fresh-cut grass, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside her chest. She heard footsteps and turned to see Brent approaching, his usual confidence replaced by vulnerability. "Emily," he began awkwardly, "I'm sorry. For everything I said. And for how I made you feel." Emily looked at him, really looked at him, the brother she'd loved, resented, and missed. "It hurt, Brent. But tonight you started to understand. That means something." He nodded, a tight smile breaking through. "Maybe I've been chasing the wrong version of success all along." They stood there in silence, the city lights twinkling below like distant stars. The wedding continued late into the night, but for Emily, something had shifted. The simple life she led, once mocked, now seemed a quiet kind of victory. She realized she didn't need to fit into Brent's world to hold her own. As the last guests began to leave and the music softened, Cassandra came to find Emily one last time. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "For being who you are." Emily smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth. "Thank you for standing up for me." In that moment, beneath the vast California sky, Emily understood that sometimes family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, forgiveness, and seeing each other clearly. The morning after the wedding arrived with a crisp breeze that swept through the sprawling gardens of the estate, carrying away the echoes of last night's laughter and whispers. Emily woke in her modest hotel room, the soft hum of the city seeping through the window. The previous night's events replayed in her mind, each moment sharper, more vivid. She dressed slowly, choosing comfort over style, a simple blouse and jeans that felt like armor. As she checked her phone, a new message blinked on the screen. From Cassandra. "Coffee. We need to talk." Emily hesitated, then replied, "I'll be down in 30. The hotel cafe was quiet that morning, sun spilling over the polished wood tables and casting golden light through large windows. Cassandra was already there when Emily arrived, sitting alone at a corner table, her expression serious but inviting. "Thanks for coming," Cassandra said, smiling gently as Emily sat down. "I'm glad you reached out," Emily replied. Cassandra took a deep breath. "I want to be honest with you, Emily. Last night was just the surface. Brent's been struggling more than you know." Emily's brow furrowed. "Struggling how?" "Pressure from his job, family expectations. He's carrying a lot of weight. And he's been shutting people out, including me." Emily nodded slowly. "I could tell. He seemed different." "It's been hard for both of us," Cassandra admitted. "But I don't want that to be an excuse for how he treated you. You deserve better." Emily felt a swell of gratitude mixed with lingering pain. "Thank you. That means a lot." Cassandra reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I want you to know, no matter what happens, you're family." Later that day, Emily took a long walk through a nearby park. The gentle rustle of leaves and distant laughter of children brought a calm she hadn't felt in weeks. She thought about Brent, the brother she'd loved fiercely, and the man who'd wounded her deeply. Was this the start of healing? Or just a pause before another storm? Her phone buzzed again. A text from Brent. "Can we talk?" Emily stared at the screen, heart pounding. She typed back, "Okay." They met at a small diner not far from the hotel, the kind of place where locals knew your name and the coffee was strong and endless. Brent looked exhausted, the usual shine in his eyes dimmed. He didn't apologize right away. Instead, he spoke slowly, carefully. "I've been a jerk," he admitted. "I thought success meant outshining everyone else. I forgot that it also means being there for people who matter." Emily listened, feeling the weight behind his words. "I'm scared, Em," he confessed. "Scared I'm losing myself, my family, everything." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "You're not alone. And you're not the person you think you are." For the first time in years, something fragile and hopeful passed between them. That evening, Emily returned to her room, her thoughts a swirl of emotions. The simple life she'd once believed made her invisible was becoming the anchor that kept her grounded. She didn't know what the future held with Brent or Cassandra. But she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to face it, on her own terms. The days following the wedding were a strange mix of calm and chaos for Emily. Los Angeles, with its sun-drenched streets and ceaseless energy, felt both overwhelming and oddly liberating. She found herself walking along the palm-lined avenues more often than she expected, reflecting on everything that had unfolded. Brent had reached out almost daily since their diner conversation, sometimes with awkward texts, sometimes with genuine attempts at connection. Emily responded cautiously but openly. She knew rebuilding years of distance and misunderstanding wouldn't happen overnight, but for the first time, she believed it could happen at all. One afternoon, Emily found herself sitting in a small community library nestled between sleek coffee shops and boutiques on a quiet side street. The smell of old paper and polished wood was comforting. She watched as a group of children gathered around a librarian who read aloud from a picture book. It reminded her of why she loved her work, the quiet impact of simple, meaningful moments. Her phone buzzed. A message from Cassandra. "Dinner tonight?" Something casual. Emily smiled and typed back, "I'd like that." Dinner was at a small, unassuming bistro where the lights were soft and the noise low enough to hear the music. Cassandra arrived a few minutes late, looking effortlessly chic but tired. She ordered a glass of red wine and smiled when Emily arrived. They talked about everything: Brent, family, dreams, and the unexpected twists life had thrown their way. "I sometimes think people forget that marriage isn't just about the big moments," Cassandra said. "It's about the little things, the everyday choices to be patient and kind." Emily nodded. "Sounds like something I try to live by too." Cassandra's expression softened. "You're stronger than you realize, Emily. And Brent is lucky to have you." Back at the hotel later that evening, Emily's phone lit up again, this time with a call from Brent. She hesitated but answered. "I know I've been distant," he said quietly. "But I want you to be part of my life, not just my past." Emily smiled, her heart warming. "I'd like that too." They talked long into the night, not about grand gestures or apologies, but about memories, hopes, and the awkward steps of reconnecting. In the days that followed, Emily felt something shift within her. The simple life she had sometimes feared made her invisible was becoming the foundation of a new chapter, one filled with forgiveness, understanding, and the messy beauty of family. As she packed her bags to return to Oregon, she realized that no matter where life took her, the ties that bind were stronger than the distance, the hurt, or the misunderstandings. And sometimes the most powerful moments are the quiet ones, the ones that happen when no one's watching. Back in Oregon, Emily felt the familiar comfort of pine-scented air and misty mornings wrap around her like a warm blanket. The small town she'd grown up in hadn't changed much. The same cozy streets, the same friendly faces, but she had. The wedding, the conversations with Brent and Cassandra, all of it had shifted something deep inside her. Her life wasn't flashy or loud, but it was real, and that mattered. At the local cafe where she worked part-time, Emily found solace in the simple routines. She greeted regulars with genuine smiles, brewed coffee with care, and listened to stories that weren't hers but felt important anyway. It was here, amid the soft chatter and clinking cups, that she reconnected with a side of herself she'd forgotten. One afternoon, a familiar voice called out from the doorway. It was Sarah, her childhood friend, now a teacher at the local school. "Emily." "It's been too long," Sarah said, wrapping her in a quick hug. Emily smiled, feeling the warmth of old friendship. They sat down, catching up on life, love, and the little dramas of small-town living. Sarah listened as Emily talked about the wedding, the tension with Brent, and the surprising kindness of Cassandra. "You know," Sarah said thoughtfully, "sometimes the hardest journeys lead us back home, but with new eyes." Emily nodded, feeling the truth of that statement settle in her heart. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Emily sat on her porch with a notebook in hand. She had started writing again, not stories for anyone else but for herself. Words poured out, healing wounds she hadn't even known were open. Her phone buzzed. A message from Brent. "Want a video call?" After a moment's hesitation, she accepted. Brent's face appeared, tired but genuine. "I miss you," he said simply. Emily smiled softly. "I miss you too." They talked late into the night, sharing jokes, memories, and plans for the future, tentative but hopeful. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between Oregon and Los Angeles no longer felt so vast. Phone calls became weekly visits. Visits became moments of laughter and shared meals. Emily realized that her brother was still learning, still growing just like she was. One afternoon, Cassandra surprised Emily with a visit. The two women spent hours exploring the small town, drinking coffee, and sharing stories about their lives. "I'm glad you're here," Cassandra said quietly. "Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who choose to stay." Emily nodded, feeling a deep gratitude she couldn't put into words. As the sun set over the quiet town, Emily looked out at the horizon, a sense of peace washing over her. Her simple life wasn't just enough. It was beautiful. Emily sat on the worn bench at the edge of the town's small park, watching as children played tag and the late afternoon sun filtered through the trees. The quiet hum of life around her contrasted sharply with the turmoil she'd felt just weeks before. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced down to see a message from Brent. "Can we talk?" "Think it's time." She sighed, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Brent hadn't been this serious since the wedding. She typed back, "Where?" "The family home," came the reply. That evening, Emily drove the familiar winding roads back to the house she'd grown up in. The place felt the same, yet different. Memories lining every corner, shadows of old arguments, laughter and tears. Brent was waiting on the porch, looking older than his years but hopeful. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. Emily nodded. "What's going on?" Brent took a deep breath. "I've been avoiding this for too long. Mom and Dad. Their divorce, the fights, all the pressure, it shaped me in ways I didn't realize. I took it out on you because I didn't know how else to deal." Emily's eyes filled. "I've carried those wounds too." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years settling between them. "I want us to heal," Brent said. "To be better than what we were." Emily smiled through tears. "Me too." Inside the house, the walls whispered stories of their childhood. Photos of holidays and birthdays, faded but precious. Emily ran her hand over a frame of their family, before the fractures began. They talked late into the night, peeling back layers of pain and misunderstanding. For the first time they were honest, not just about their hurts but their hopes. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows, Emily felt lighter. The past was still there, but it no longer held her captive. Brent stood beside her, a tentative peace between them. "Thank you," he said. "No," Emily replied softly. "Thank you." Outside, the world moved on, but for Emily and Brent, a new chapter had begun. The weekend after their heartfelt conversation, Emily and Brent found themselves standing side by side in the family's old backyard. The garden, once lush with their mother's careful tending, was now overgrown with weeds and wildflowers, a tangled mess that mirrored the years of neglect in their relationship. Brent pulled on a pair of work gloves and handed Emily a rake. "Let's start fixing this," he said with a small, hopeful smile. Emily nodded, rolling up her sleeves. One weed at a time. As they worked, memories surfaced. Laughter echoing from summers past, whispered secrets under the stars, and moments of sibling rivalry that, in hindsight, seemed almost trivial. The physical labor gave them something tangible to focus on, a shared purpose beyond words. Between clearing brush and trimming hedges, they talked about their dreams and fears. Brent opened up about the pressures of his job in the tech world, the endless deadlines, the loneliness despite the crowds of colleagues. "I always thought success meant climbing higher," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But maybe it means finding balance." Emily shared her quiet life in Oregon, the peace she'd found in routine, the joy of small victories. "I think there's strength in simplicity," she said. Brent looked at her thoughtfully. "You've always had that, even when I didn't see it." By late afternoon, the garden had transformed. The wild chaos tamed into something beautiful, a space where old wounds could begin to heal. Standing among the freshly cleared beds, Emily felt a surge of hope. Their relationship, like the garden, was a work in progress. It would take time, care, and patience, but it could thrive again. That evening, Cassandra called with news. "Brent and I are thinking about moving here, to Oregon," she said excitedly. "Closer to you, to the family." Emily's heart lifted. "That would be amazing." "It's time to build something new," Cassandra said. "Something real." As Emily hung up, she looked out her window at the darkening sky. The stars were beginning to twinkle, small lights in a vast universe. She smiled, feeling the pull of home stronger than ever. The first signs of spring were beginning to show in Emily's small town, the soft green buds on the trees, the gentle buzz of bees returning, and the crisp scent of damp earth after a light rain. The town itself seemed to breathe with new life, and Emily felt it too, a stirring beneath the surface she hadn't felt in years. She was at her favorite spot by the river, where the water ran clear and cold, reflecting the sky like a mirror. This was where she often came to think, to find peace when life felt complicated. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brent. "We're driving up next weekend. Can't wait to see you." Emily smiled, her heart quickening. It wasn't just the promise of a visit. It was the promise of something more. Chance to rebuild, to create new memories. The weekend arrived bright and warm. Emily stood on her porch, the morning sun casting long shadows, when a familiar car rolled up the driveway. Brent stepped out, looking tired but happy, with Cassandra beside him. They carried boxes, laughter spilling from the truck bed. "I hope you saved some room," Brent teased. "We're here for good." Emily's chest tightened with emotion. It was surreal to see them, her brother and his wife, ready to start fresh in the town she called home. The days that followed were filled with unpacking, planning, and long conversations. Cassandra was excited to explore the local farmers market, while Brent found a job opportunity nearby that seemed to promise a better balance. Emily helped set up their new apartment, bringing over small touches from her own space. Handmade pottery, photographs, books. It felt like weaving threads together, creating a tapestry of family. One evening, they gathered around a simple dinner table, the scent of roasted vegetables filling the air. The conversation flowed easily, laughter mingling with quiet moments of reflection. Brent raised his glass. "To new beginnings." Emily clinked her glass with his, a genuine smile lighting her face. "To family." As the stars twinkled overhead, Emily felt a deep sense of belonging. The past's shadows were still there, but they no longer defined her. Here, in this small town surrounded by love and understanding, she was finally home. The arrival of Brent and Cassandra had brought a new rhythm to Emily's life. The small apartment they now shared hummed with activity, the aroma of Cassandra's cooking, Brent's occasional bursts of laughter, and the soft murmur of conversations late into the night. Yet, beneath the surface, some tensions lingered, unspoken and unresolved. One rainy afternoon, Emily sat by the window, watching droplets race down the glass. Her thoughts drifted to the last conversation she'd had with Brent. He'd hinted at something, a burden he'd been carrying but hadn't yet shared. Her phone buzzed. A message from Brent. "Can we talk? It's important." Emily's heart tightened. She replied immediately, "I'm here." They met at the local coffee shop, a cozy place with a scent of fresh espresso and worn leather chairs. Brent looked serious, the usual spark in his eyes dimmed by worry. "I've been offered a big promotion," he began, voice low. "It means moving back to LA, more stress, less time. But it's a step up." Emily studied him carefully. "And what do you want?" Brent sighed. "I want to stay here, with you, with Cassandra. But I'm scared about what that means for my career. For everything." Emily reached out, placing a hand over his. "You don't have to choose alone. We're family. We figure it out together." That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about sacrifice and ambition, about the messy intersections of dreams and reality. She realized that healing was not just about forgiving the past. It was about facing the uncertain future together. The next morning, she called Cassandra. They met for brunch, sunlight streaming through the cafe windows. "We have to support him," Cassandra said firmly. "Whatever he decides." Emily nodded. "And we have to be honest, with him and with ourselves." Back at the apartment, the three of them sat down, an unspoken pact forming between them. No more hiding fears. No more silent sacrifices. Brent looked at both women, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you. For being here. For being real." Emily smiled. "That's what family is." Outside, the rain softened to a gentle drizzle. Inside, a new chapter was beginning, one built on trust, love, and the courage to face whatever came next. The weeks following their honest conversation brought a delicate balance to Emily's life. Brent had declined the promotion, choosing instead to build a career that aligned with his new priorities. It wasn't easy. He faced skepticism from colleagues and the gnawing fear of missed opportunities, but with Cassandra and Emily by his side, he felt stronger. One afternoon, Emily found herself at the local community center, volunteering for a literacy program. Helping others find their voices gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't fully appreciated before. The simplicity of teaching adults to read, of seeing their confidence bloom, mirrored her own journey of reclaiming her identity. Meanwhile, Brent struggled to redefine success on his own terms. He took on a role at a local startup, where innovation was prized over status. The long hours were still there, but now they were punctuated with moments of genuine connection. One evening, as Brent and Emily walked along the riverbank, he confessed his fears. "I'm scared I won't be enough," he admitted. "Not for the job, not for Cassandra, not even for you." Emily stopped and looked at him, her eyes steady and kind. "Brent, you've been enough all along. You just forgot to believe it." He smiled, relief washing over his face. At home, Cassandra's career blossomed too, her passion for teaching driving her forward. Together, the three formed a quiet, resilient family, imperfect but fiercely connected. One Sunday, as the sun warmed the porch, Emily reflected on how far they'd come. The simple life she once thought was a limitation had become a source of strength, a foundation where love, forgiveness, and hope could grow. Spring had fully arrived, painting the town with bursts of color. Cherry blossoms framed the streets, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh blooms and warm earth. Emily loved this time of year, the sense of renewal, of possibility. But even as nature blossomed, Emily felt a restlessness stirring within her. One afternoon, Brent called her from his office. "Can we meet? I have something to tell you." They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe near the river. When Emily arrived, she found Brent already seated, his expression serious. "I've been offered another job," he said, hesitating. "This one's in Seattle. Bigger, more stable. It could mean a fresh start." Emily's heart skipped. Seattle was far, a different world entirely. "And Cassandra?" she asked softly. "She's excited about the opportunity. But I'm torn. I don't want to lose what we've built here." Emily nodded, understanding the weight of the decision. Change can be scary, but sometimes it's necessary. Brent looked out the window, watching the river flow. "I don't want to let go of family." "You won't," Emily said. "Family isn't just a place. It's who we carry with us." That evening, Emily walked through the blossoming park, wrestling with her own fears about the future. The simple life she cherished was being challenged, but maybe that was part of growth. She realized that love, like the seasons, required change to thrive. When she got home, Brent and Cassandra were waiting with news. They decided to take the Seattle opportunity, but with plans to visit often and stay connected no matter what. Emily smiled, a bittersweet mix of pride and sadness filling her chest. As spring turned to summer, the family prepared for a new chapter, one defined not by distance, but by the strength of their bond. The moving day came with the golden light of early summer casting long shadows over the small town. Emily stood on the porch, watching Brent and Cassandra load the last boxes into their car. The familiar hum of engines and the scent of pine filled the air, but the quiet felt heavier than usual. "Are you sure about this?" Emily asked softly as she approached Brent. He looked at her, a mix of excitement and sadness in his eyes. "It's what's best for all of us." Cassandra hugged Emily tightly. "We'll be back soon. This isn't goodbye." The drive away was long and filled with a silence that spoke louder than words. Emily stayed behind, feeling the weight of the empty rooms and the absence of laughter that had filled them. She busied herself with work and volunteering, but in quiet moments she found herself reaching for her phone, hesitating before putting it down again. Weeks passed and technology bridged the miles. Video calls became lifelines, Shared dinners, late-night talks, and virtual celebrations kept their bond strong. But Emily knew that something had shifted. The physical distance brought clarity about what mattered most. One evening, after a particularly long call, Emily sat outside under the stars, feeling the cool grass beneath her. The night was quiet except for the rustle of leaves and distant sounds of the town settling in for sleep. She whispered to the sky, "We hold on to love even when we have to let go." Back in Seattle, Brent and Cassandra were building their new life. Challenges arose. New jobs, new friends, new routines, but their connection to Emily never wavered. Months later, a surprise visit from Brent and Cassandra rekindled the warmth of home. They spent the weekend exploring the town, revisiting old haunts, and making new memories. Emily realized that no matter where life took them, their family was unbreakable. The weekend felt like a breath of fresh air, the kind that fills your lungs and clears your mind. Brent and Cassandra's visit brought the house back to life, laughter echoing through the rooms, the clinking of coffee mugs, and the warmth of familiar voices. Emily watched as Brent and Cassandra moved through the kitchen, preparing a meal together. The easy rhythm between them reminded her how much had changed, and how much had stayed the same. After dinner, they gathered in the living room, sitting close on the worn couch, sharing stories and dreams. Brent looked at Emily, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you for everything. For being my anchor." Emily smiled. "We're stronger because we lean on each other." Cassandra nodded. "Family is more than blood. It's the people who choose to stay." The next day, they took a long walk through the town, revisiting favorite spots and making new memories. At the river's edge, Emily felt a quiet peace settle over her. She realized that family wasn't perfect, but it was real. Messy, complicated, but full of love. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the town, Emily looked at Brent and Cassandra and knew that no matter where life took them, they would always have this, a bond that time and distance could never break. The seasons had cycled once more, and with the crisp air of autumn came a quiet sense of closure. Emily stood on the porch of her childhood home, the leaves crunching beneath her feet, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. From the pain of ridicule at Brent's wedding to the slow, fragile rebuilding of their family, everything had led to this moment, one of acceptance, understanding, and hope. Brent and Cassandra's recent move back to town had solidified the bond they all shared. No longer strangers bound by circumstance, but a family forged through honesty and love. That afternoon, they gathered in the backyard for a small celebration, a simple picnic with homemade food, laughter, and stories. The sun dipped low, casting a warm amber glow, illuminating faces marked by growth and resilience. Emily looked around at her brother, his wife, and the friends who had become family. She felt the weight of the past but also the lightness of forgiveness. "Thank you," Brent said quietly, catching her eye. "For believing in me, even when I didn't." Emily smiled. "That's what family does." As twilight deepened, Emily stepped away for a moment, gazing up at the stars that had witnessed so much of their story. She whispered to the night, "This is home." And in that quiet moment, she knew she had found something far more valuable than success or approval, a place where she belonged, just as she was.